I've even had a record company, and I don't want to lambaste nobody's name or anything, but they told me, Hammer, you know what the problem is? You're a little too clean. Here's what we're going to do. Why don't you start to do a few things that maybe dirty up your image a little bit. Maybe we can sell a little more records.
They got this new breed of rapper that's paying DJs to play their
right.
You know what I'm saying? They sucking the record label executive, and it's like there's too much of that going on.
I don't want to ever have to call somebody's mother or father and say, I got bad news for you. They found your daughter this morning dead on 10th Street about 4 o'clock. I think the first question from that parent mind would be, Hammer, I let my daughter go with you. What was she doing out at 4 o'clock in the morning on 10th Street? So therefore, I accept my responsibility, and if I get labeled a disciplinarian.
He told Diddy to his face, I'm not with your freak-off shit. And after that, Diddy never came near him again. This wasn't just beef. This was a silent war between the industry's most protected puppets and the few real ones who couldn't be bought, DMX and MC Hammer.
To most people, it sounds like a wild rumor. But to anyone who really knew DMX, it made perfect sense. He was one of the few rappers who didn't play the industry's game, and the industry hated him for it. DMX didn't bite his tongue. He didn't show up to the exclusive parties. He didn't cozy up to label execs for favors. And he definitely wasn't selling his soul for fame. The same goes for MC Hammer. Yeah, the flashy guy in the parachute pants. Behind the dance moves was a man who took his crew seriously, protected them like family, and refused to let the machine chew them up and spit them out. While artists like Diddy built empires by playing the game and keeping secrets, DMX and Hammer stood alone. And what happened to them because of that? They got erased, mocked, and blackballed. But now, their stories are being re-examined. And the truth is starting to hit harder than ever. Because when you're the one person in the room who won't bow down, you become a threat. And the industry knew it. Before the suits started whispering in his ear, MC Hammer was exactly what they say they wanted, clean, positive, and wildly successful. But that was the problem. He was too clean. One record label even told him outright, you're a little too squeaky. Maybe start dirtying up your image. We'll sell more records. Let that sink in. A man making millions, moving units, influencing kids in a good way. And their plan was to ruin that. Why? Because a clean image doesn't give them control. They wanted Hammer out in the clubs, in scandals, and deep in the chaos they could manipulate. But Hammer said no. And here's where it gets crazier.
See me at every party, every industry party, all the clubs. I go somewhere quiet, man, shoot pool with me and my mans and them. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of shit. That's the type of shit. You know what I'm saying? Remote control cars, jump on the four-wheelers, you know what I mean? I ain't with all that in the club, throwing it up and all that bullshit.
Instead of partying, he was out here holding his team accountable. Curfews, bed checks, tour rules. People laughed, called him a control freak. But you know what Hammer said? I don't ever want to call a parent and tell them we found their daughter dead at 4 a.m. on 10th Street. That's not industry talk. That's real life. That's a man accepting responsibility when nobody else would. And it didn't stop there. Hammer didn't just protect. He empowered. The dancers signed to his label. His crew on his payroll. Everything he built, he tried to bring people up with him. But the industry doesn't reward protectors. They reward predators. And just when you think that's as bad as it gets, wait till you see what they tried to pull with DMX. Now, if Hammer was the protector, DMX was the warrior, raw, unfiltered, and absolutely fearless. And when the industry came knocking, he didn't just ignore them. He confronted them. It all started when Diddy tried to sign him. At first, Diddy passed, said DMX wasn't the right fit for Bad Boy. But the moment Def Jam showed interest, Diddy came crawling back. And not just with a simple offer. He was begging. DMX said it himself. Yo, I'll double your money. I'll lease your pockets. But X wasn't buying it. Not because of the deal, but because of the vibe. He already knew something was off. And here's where it gets worse.
Now, you got issues with the industry. What's going down with the industry, dog?
The industry is full of a bunch of sucking, riding, bending over the desk, straight up like that. Whoever don't like it, bring it. Bring it. I don't give a bring it. Bring it. They got this new breed of rapper that's paying DJs to play their shit.
Right.
And, you know what I'm saying? They sucking the record label executives' dicks, and it's like there's too much of that going on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Let me be me. Let me be the artist that I am and just play my mother music. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Now they want you all up under this, you know, sitting at the going to dinner with them and shit like that, and you know, all that favor for a favor shit. I don't get down like that. Look, I give you the music, you give my money. That's it. A lot of the love I had for wanting to be a part of the industry is not there anymore. I don't even associate myself with the industry. You know what I'm saying? I'm not an industry artist. I'm an artist in the industry.
Behind closed doors, DMX started hearing whispers, real disturbing stuff, shady deals, exploited artists, and something even darker, what Suge Knight would later call the egg ritual.
It is weird. All right, it goes like this, and this is from the words of Suge Knight, okay? P. Diddy offers you a boiled egg, and you gotta be able to put it somewhere without it cracking. And if you do that, you passed for whatever it is they need you to do. I'm not gonna lie, I thought this was a joke, but apparently, allegedly, it looks like it's something that really goes down.
Those guys put their pants down and been over this. The eggs break. They say they not ready yet. They ain't put a...
Yeah, that one. According to Suge, Diddy had a twisted way of testing artists, offering them a boiled egg and telling them to do things with it that have nothing to do with music. It sounds insane. You'd think it's a joke. But multiple people started saying the same thing. DMX? He wasn't laughing. In fact, he allegedly pressed Diddy about it to his face, told him flat out that if that's what came with the deal, he wasn't interested. And just like that, Diddy backed off. He never brought it up again, because he knew DMX wasn't one of the weak ones. He couldn't be bent. But that's not the end of it, because once you reject the system, it starts working against you. And DMX? He was just getting started. Turning down Diddy? That was just the beginning. DMX didn't just reject the offer. He rejected the entire game. And the industry doesn't forget that. After that, things started moving quietly. Too quietly. X noticed his videos weren't getting proper airplay. Labels started stalling his releases. Promos vanished. Suddenly, he was hearing things like, "We don't want your two videos competing with each other." But guess what? Other artists were running 3 at the same time, back to back. He wasn't imagining it. He was being sidelined, on purpose. And when DMX realized what was happening, he didn't schedule a meeting. He threw a punch. Literally. One of the execs caught a face full of reality. And from that point on, X stopped going to the office altogether. But wait, it gets worse. They weren't just trying to silence his music. They were trying to erase him entirely. DMX had millions of fans, a voice like thunder, and lyrics that hit people's spirit. But none of that mattered when the system decided you weren't cooperative. Meanwhile, Hammer was catching his own heat. Not because he failed, but because he wouldn't loosen up, wouldn't party, wouldn't let his dancers run wild, wouldn't play puppet. They said he was too controlling. But Hammer wasn't on a power trip. He was protecting young people from the very same dark system trying to pull them in. And this is the part no one talks about. The industry rewards submission, not strength. Play along, and you get the fame, the deals, the awards. Resist, you disappear. But here's the twist. Neither DMX nor Hammer disappeared. They got louder. And next, you'll see exactly what they stood for and why it terrified the entire machine. By now, it's clear DMX and MC Hammer weren't just artists. They were men with a code. And in an industry where selling out is the norm, that code made them dangerous. DMX wasn't trying to climb the industry ladder. He was too busy keeping his soul intact. While other rappers were whining and dining execs, DMX was out in the streets, preaching the truth through a mic. Not for clout, not for chart positions, for the people. He never played the fame game, didn't care about flashing money, didn't chase fashion trends. And he sure as hell didn't let anyone take him shopping, a phrase he used to clown rappers who let execs dress them like dolls. Hammer? Same energy, just a different style. People mocked the dancing, the flashy pants, the pop appeal, but they didn't know who they were talking about. Hammer was no industry clown. He was respected in the streets. Deeply. Oakland knew it. His crew knew it. And so did the label bosses behind closed doors.
They didn't get shook by MC Hammer, bro.
You know, Hammer was a big dog, man. He got respect in the streets. Came from a respected crew. They handled business, him and his brother Lewis and the crew. Without spending any money, Hammer could have told some people to him the up. I know who Hammer was affiliated with, and he wouldn't have to pay. We from Oakland.
You be talking, talking shit about Hammer, but run up on it.
Hammer beat you.
I bet he'll beat your mouth ass.
Run up on Hammer.
That goddamn MC Hammer, very serious about beef. Oh, you gonna talk about my dancing pants? I see you. And he will whoop out.
And after Redman's interview, I will never disrespect Hammer.
His entourage was something like I never seen in my life. Like it was literally
100 people.
More than 100 people, probably.
That's actually how he.
But it was girls, guys, gangsters, dancers, everybody.
I go right on Hammer because they said he is that real, and it was like.
Here's the part nobody wants to admit. Neither of these men had scandals with women. In an industry drowning in NDAs, cover-ups, and abuse stories, DMX and Hammer stood out for the opposite reason. Nothing ever came out. No misconduct. No shady NDAs. No creepy stories from women years later. Even DMX, wild as he was, never caught a single accusation of crossing the line with a woman. Not one. And it gets even more real. You remember Aaliyah? There were always rumors they dated. But when you watch them together, it wasn't romantic. It was respectful. DMX spoke about her like a guardian, not a guy looking for attention. And when she passed, he didn't jump on the moment for clout. He mourned her like family. Even Aaliyah's mother said he had a heart of gold. That kind of energy, you can't fake that. And the industry couldn't stand it. Because when you're that real, they can't exploit you. And if they can't exploit you, they can't control you. But it doesn't stop there, because the media had their own game to play. And next, we get into how the image they painted of DMX and Hammer was nothing like the truth. Now here's where it gets blatantly obvious. When you've got real ones like DMX and Hammer standing on principle, refusing to fold, the industry doesn't just stay quiet. They attack. But they don't come at you directly. They send the media. DMX was painted as everything they could throw at him. Unstable, dangerous, addicted, angry, violent. The headlines made him look like a ticking time bomb. Arrest after arrest, mugshot after mugshot. But not once did any of those stories involve abuse, misconduct, or women saying he crossed a line. Think about that. The media ran his name through the dirt for years, but the one thing they could never pin on him was being a predator. Because he wasn't one. In an industry where that's disturbingly common, DMX was wild, but he had a moral code. And Hammer? They tried to erase him a different way. They didn't label him dangerous. They labeled him a joke. Parachute pants, dance moves, corny music. They laughed at him like he wasn't the same man who ran with serious street credibility, who stood on business and moved like a general. But here's the part they didn't want the public to realize. Hammer was too clean, too positive, too structured. They didn't want young people seeing a successful black man who didn't drink, didn't party, didn't cuss, and was still cool. So they clowned him, turned him into a meme before memes even existed. Meanwhile, the Diddies and Jay-Z's of the world were being praised. Every award, every platform, every commercial, even as stories and rumors piled up around them, the machine kept pushing them forward. And why? Because they played the game. Because they made alliances with the higher-ups, did the dinners, signed the deals, and, allegedly, kept the secrets. But DMX and Hammer? They weren't trying to play chess with devils. They were just trying to walk with integrity. And for that, the system came after them in broad daylight. But what the system didn't count on was that people would start waking up. Because as the years passed, fans started digging. Stories started connecting. And suddenly people realized these two weren't washed up crazy or corny. They were ahead of their time. And in the next part, we break down just how deep that connection between X and Hammer really ran, and why the industry feared them even more together than apart. DMX and MC Hammer couldn't have been more different on the surface. One was raw, street, and spiritual. The other was polished, positive, and precise. But underneath, they were the same. Both stood on values. Both walked away from power when it came with a price. Both protected their people, whether that meant punching a label exec in the face or enforcing curfews on tour. And while they weren't constantly seen together, there was real mutual respect. People close to both men said Hammer admired DMX's fearlessness, and DMX respected Hammer's discipline. They saw through the smoke, the lies, the labels, and they saw each other clearly. That kind of brotherhood, it doesn't need press releases. It shows in the way they moved, the things they refused to say yes to, and the way they were both quietly punished for staying solid. It wasn't about clicks. It wasn't about clout. It was about not selling out. And in the music industry, that makes you dangerous. But even in exile, even with the media trying to erase their legacies, their influence never died. This is the part that still hits people years later. While Diddy was rising to mogul status, praised, protected, and pushed by the machine, DMX was getting locked up and locked out. While Jay-Z was becoming hip-hop's billionaire businessman, Hammer was being painted as a washed-up punchline. But here's what nobody wants to say out loud. The ones they couldn't use, they buried. DMX didn't attend the right parties. Hammer didn't flirt with executives or play into scandals. And when the devil came offering money, fame, and control, both said no. They weren't perfect, but they were real. They stood for something. And that's exactly why they were feared. Because you can't blackmail someone who has nothing to hide. You can't control someone who already walked away from the system. And you can't exploit a man who knows his worth without your contract. That's why their stories were suppressed. That's why the same media that praises predators gave them static. Because men like DMX and Hammer, they're immune to the system's usual tricks. And that's a threat. So now ask yourself, why were the most disciplined, loyal, protective artists the ones pushed out of the spotlight? Why were the wildest headlines thrown at DMX, but none of them involved harming women or abusing power? Why was Hammer turned into a joke when he was running an entire empire with clean hands and a full heart? It's simple. They couldn't be controlled. DMX and MC Hammer weren't industry darlings. They were too real, too honest, too grounded. And because of that, they were cut off, dragged, and erased while puppets were given platinum platforms. But the truth always finds a way. And as people look back now, they're realizing DMX and Hammer didn't lose. They walked away with their souls intact. So what do you think? Was DMX blackballed for refusing to bow down? Did Hammer lose his spotlight because he protected his crew instead of exploiting them? And most importantly, why does the industry reward the predators and bury the protectors? Let me know in the comments. Let's talk about it.